Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, RPG Retro Reviews. I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and talk about how you might integrate them into your current campaign. This week, I take a look back at the classic module, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Rated number 5 in Dragon Magazine's 30 Greatest Adventures of All Time, Expedition is infamous for its mingling of fantasy and science fiction elements, a concept that in the early days of Dungeons & Dragons and RPGs were still relatively novel. Just a quick spoiler warning, I'm going to delve deep into this one, so you might not want to watch this yet if you're wanting to play it. But point your DM in this direction and maybe they'll consider running it for you. There's a lot to cover in this one, so let's get started. Released in February of 1980, and written by the master DM himself, Gary Gygax, once again we return to the Grand Duchy of Jeff as a plague of strange monsters is threatening the region, and a group of highly skilled adventurers is sought to investigate and track down the source of the chaos in the Barrier Peaks and bring it to order. The characters are told that a mysterious stronghold sheathed in steel with a gated cave entrance seems to be the source of the trouble. Political leaders in the area, the Duke Owen of Jeff, the Society of the Mage Vester, the Fellowship of the Blinding Light, the Magsman Brotherhood, and the High Lord of Elvendom have already organized several expeditions to resolve the problem. Some returned, saying they were unable to find an entry into the place, while others failed to return at all. Like many modules of this era, there is only the thinnest of plot, which is a construct to get the heroes involved in a sci-fi fantasy crossover romp, changing crossbows for ray guns and high adventure. Essentially, the original ship was beset upon by some alien plague and sectioned off, the resulting cataclysm destroying the main vessel. The piece that crash-landed in Greyhawk is only one section that apparently got sucked into a black hole and spit out into the world of Greyhawk space, where it crash-landed in the Barrier Peaks. The module draws heavily on classic sci-fi tropes from the 1950s and 60s, and so many of Gygax's influences are on display here. There's a bit of Heinlein, Forbidden Planet, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Star Trek, the original series of course, sprinkled in here and there for good measure, and much more. The spaceship from another dimension was a zoo ship, so there is a fairly nice collection of alien species gathered from planets all over the galaxy. Most are completely unknown, but a few are familiar, which leads to some interesting ideas and conclusions. Many are quite hostile and dangerous, and their escape into the surrounding countryside is the primary source of the problem. The ship is also populated with robots and human-like androids, as the original crew was a human-like species, but also presents its own unique set of challenges. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks gets its origin as a crossover module meant to introduce Jim Ward's Metamorphosis Alpha to the public at large, and was first introduced at Origins 2 in 1976 as a tournament module. In addition, Gygax's inspiration for this module came from Rob Kuntz's machine level from Castle Greyhawk. Kuntz had been co-DMing with Gygax and had moved that level from his own Castle El Raja to Castle Greyhawk. Then, of course, there is Dave Arneson's City of the Gods adventure for his Blackmoor campaign that Gygax had run through and barely escaped with his character's life. That adventure is also about a crashed spaceship that the players explore and find sci-fi-esque technology. City of the Gods was later converted to a module for the D&D game as part of the DA series, DA3, City of the Gods. At the time, it was also thought that this crossover module would be a great way to possibly encourage players to purchase TSR's Gamma World game, and anyone familiar with that game's settings and rules would recognize the infamous flowcharts for characters to determine how technological items might work, and the similarity in weaponry such as the needler rifle. The flowcharts follow the idea that low-tech characters will have difficulty unlocking the working mechanisms of high-tech items and simulate ignorance in the function of such items. Lethal items were especially dangerous, as fiddling with one could definitely result in severe injury or death. Given the nature of this connection to the Gamma World game, it might be a lot of fun to conjecture that the crashed spaceship is actually a spacecraft from 23rd century Earth, the general time period and setting of the Gamma World game. This can certainly be hinted at given the module itself includes Earth-like pastimes in the recreation and game rooms, which have arcade games, poker, blackjack, and other games of chance that can be played, clearly of Earth origin. Add to that, one of Gamma World's introductory adventures is the Albuquerque starport, so humans had certainly developed galactic space travel by the 23rd century. A DM wishing to more fully explore the potential of the scenario might expand upon the material here to allow for a trip back to Earth, the Gamma World. Perhaps in the century the spaceship has been stranded on Greyhawk, the highly advanced computer system achieves some type of sentience, and much of the chaos that has been wreaked upon the surrounding area is from androids and robots seeking raw materials, so the computer, we'll call it Alpha Matrix Zero, can create a dimensional rift and get the ship home, and thus complete its original programming. Using a combination of both technology and magic acquired from the world of Greyhawk, the computer has created a portal to transport the entire ship back to Earth. Imagine finally putting the pieces of the puzzle together and realizing that all along there actually was an intelligence and a plan behind the chaos, thus giving a hidden plot to the module. The adventure could conclude in one of several ways, and several exciting scenarios immediately suggest themselves, such as attempting to foil the computer's plot, or even helping it along if they can actually figure out what's going on. In the end, there might be a run for the exits as Alpha Matrix Zero completes its task and engages the portal, transporting the entire wrecked ship back to Earth, unaware of the devastation that has occurred on the home world in its absence. The characters would end up trapped in the ship as the device activates and emerges across time and space in the Gamma World setting. How much fun would that be? Certainly an interesting way to spice up a campaign and give it a new and fun direction. The possibilities are only limited by the participants' imagination. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks is part of the S-Series, or Special Series of modules. Essentially, it means that it is a standalone adventure not connected to anything else. Modules in this series include S1 Tomb of Horrors, S2 White Plume Mountain, and S4 The Lost Caverns of Sojkamp. Like S1, this module includes an illustration booklet, but this one is one of the most lavishly produced illustration booklets TSR ever put out, with 63 separate illustrations, 4 of them in color. Most of these illustrations are done by Earl Otis, but also include work by Jeff D., David S. LaForce, Greg K. Fleming, and David Sutherland III. Cover and back illustrations are by Earl Otis, though the front cover is a bit notorious in that it gives away some of the surprises in the module. The module is also infamous for the colored keycards that are required for access to various sections of the ship. No less than 7 keycards are required to gain full access to the place. Gray, red, yellow, orange, violet, brown, and jet black, and can be found in various rooms throughout the ship. So it is incumbent for the DM to be familiar with the rooms and their contents. Intense study of the module is suggested if you intend to run it. To complicate matters even further, the doors on the DM's map are letters, indicating what color keycard is needed to gain entry. So the DM will really need to study the map to understand how each is connected. The maps here are printed on the cardstock inner cover and includes 2 additional cardstock inserts for a total of 6 massive levels, each interconnected with turbo lifts, stairwells, and ramps, further adding to the complexity. That said, there is a lot of fun to be had here. This is Gygax at his funhouse best, just having a good time and letting his imagination run wild. The mix of both new monsters and some old classics with sci-fi elements here is great. Here you can encounter Umberhawks, renegade robots, humanoid-like androids with a deadly flare, and Illithids reside on this ship. Interestingly, the Illithid seems completely at home, attired in retro sci-fi garb and a ray gun. Intellect devourers as well, but also the nightmarish wolf in sheep's clothing. The encounter of said creature greatly aided by the handy illustration booklet, making the encounters come alive. Like many adventures of this time period, it is completely open-ended. As mentioned, the backstory does hint that the ship ultimately crash-landed due to a plague on board the ship, but where exactly the ship came from and who the original inhabitants were is left completely up to the DM. This adventure is very much in the vein of a classic dungeon crawl, but in this case it's a spaceship crawl. There are 6 massive levels, and the variety of encounters ranges from simple hack and slay to complex puzzle solving. Discovering what key cards access what rooms and what have the higher levels of security is part of the fun, as well as all the cool gadgetry to be found here. While a lot of these things are quite powerful, they have a limited use as they will eventually run out of power and need a recharge. The powered armor is one such example. It has a 50-point force shield as well as 50 points of damage absorption before being rendered useless. It can fly and has built-in weaponry. Of course, figuring out how to use it all is one problem, but then needing to find a charging station on the ship is another. How much use the players get out of all this cool stuff is up to the DM as well, but in general, things will eventually run out of power or become so damaged as to no longer be functional. If you plan on running this, I suggest that you become very familiar where things are, the complexity of the encounters, and make a few choices about how available power cells and the functioning charging stations are. This will determine how long this advanced technology functions in your game. Ray guns and flight packs are cool, but they are notoriously unreliable. Nothing beats the feel of cold steel in one's hand for dependability, right?
This you can trust.
This module is readily available for PDF download on the DM's Guild for only $4.99. If you're playing the 5th edition of the game, there is a 5e conversion available as well for only $1. Let me also point you in the direction of John Pinter's Realistic Map series. He's done quite a few map conversions for classic modules. Castle Ravenloft, The Caves of Chaos, Tomb of Horrors, and more. And his realistic maps are equally well done for Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, and are perfect for virtual tabletop play on Fantasy Grounds or Roll20. If you prefer, you can also get a pretty decent print copy off of eBay for only $20 depending on completeness and condition. Well, that about wraps it up for this review, but of course I've got more retro reviews on the way, as well as a special announcement coming up. Have you played this module? What did you think of it? How do you feel about mixing up sci-fi and fantasy? What other modules would you like me to review next? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and click the little bell so you will get notifications when I release new content. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.